Our relationship with animals almost always reflects a very clear hierarchy. Humans at the top, animals below, usually being food or pets. But what if things were reversed and we became the animal food?
Animan, or animal human,
Is a manga that constructs exactly this subversion in the most disturbing way possible, making humans be hunted, tortured, and devoured by animals that have the same consciousness as us. But its beginning is quite simple. A father and his 5-year-old daughter, Tika, end up in a car accident, and they are helped by none other than an anthropomorphic being who takes him to a farm. When he wakes up after fainting, he comes face to face with the bipedal pig wearing human clothes, who vaguely explains what had happened. The man, although a little confused by what he was seeing, believed that it was just a person who, for some reason, was wearing a pig mask. But it wouldn't be long before he began to see that perhaps he was wrong about that. The pig said that his daughter was well, and he led them to the dining room where a meal awaited them. They walked through the mansion's corridors, and he found the excessive number of animal paintings on the walls very strange, but he simply thought it was just bad taste. The man commented on the supposed pig costume that person was wearing, but the pig laughed because he still hadn't understood what was happening. When they arrived at the dining room, he saw a group of other individuals at the table, also wearing animal costumes. Of course, the character was completely lost, but he decided not to question too much because it was thanks to their help that he and his daughter were well. The strange thing is that at that moment, the animals at the table began to comment amongst themselves about the two's physical health, as if they were hopeful that their bodies were healthy. The observations continued for a while longer, and the bizarre atmosphere only increased when the animals approached them, touching them and talking in a malicious tone that the character hadn't yet been able to clearly see because he was grateful for what they had done. The leader of the group, a deer named Ernest, welcomed them and asked them to eat as they were very hungry. Hungry, they ate everything in sight and praised the food, which had an unparalleled flavor. The animals continued to watch them as if they were the witch from the Hansel and Gretel story, fattening them to give them the same fate as the plate they were eating from. The man asked how he could get to the city because he wanted to go to the hospital, and at that moment everyone at the table looked at him intently as if he had touched on a forbidden subject. The atmosphere had become strange. Ernest asked that he at least get to know the farm facilities first, but he had no idea that he would be getting to know his own slaughterhouse. The pig was again his guide, and along the way, Tika touched his ears and found it funny that they were so real. But even so, her father didn't suspect that it was a real animal, because conceiving the idea of animals behaving like people was too absurd. The problem is that it dawned on them when it was too late, but most likely if they had discovered it sooner, the result would have been the same. The pig opened a gate where there was a grate containing several people whom he fed with feed. The shock of seeing other humans being treated like animals for consumption was more than he could describe in words or emotions, but still he decided to ask what was happening. The pig, without any further effort to hide the truth, stated directly that the farm raised and managed human beings for consumption. Men, women, and children were cataloged into different categories, distributed between those with the worst and best quality meat. The character tried to make sense of what he had just heard, because humans weren't seen as cattle, but the pig didn't care about what he said and commented that they were going to a higher classification stable, as if that would give him any kind of relief. He tried to react against these statements, but the harsh reality was rubbed in his face, even more so when the pig said that everything was as he expected, because everyone who faced that fate had the same reaction of disbelief that he was having when he tried to escape with Tika. He vomited from nervousness, and his terror increased when he discovered that the food he ate had actually been human flesh. Already imprisoned, he stopped to do the only thing within his reach, to think about how everything it could be true. He was placed in a small space to await his death, and if at no point he had stopped to imagine himself in the place of an animal that is slaughtered daily for consumption, now he knew firsthand what it was like to have that kind of experience. Tiki, who didn't understand the situation because she was just a child, could only cry, but her father calmed her, saying he would take care of everything. A few days later, the two managed to escape, thinking the animals had made the mistake of leaving the door unlocked. But it was all part of an even more sordid plan. They wanted the pleasure of hunting them for some fun. They fled aimlessly into the forest, thinking everything would end well if they could reach the car. But during the escape, he ended up falling into a trap when he saw someone in the woods calling for him. But the person in question was just someone whose mind had been completely destroyed to behave like an animal, or rather, like a pet of the animals. The hunt became even more intense, with no way out, when the man stepped into a bear trap. Tiki entered the river to escape at the request of his father, who stayed behind, being captured. The person who caught him knew it was against the rules to eat him, but the thrill of knowing he could devour him alive was too strong, and he bit off one of his ears. However, Ernest appeared, shooting him in the arm and reprimanding him for being so cruel to someone, because even if he was just food, he didn't deserve to suffer so much. He asks Ernest for help, who continues talking to him in a friendly tone, and then he says that he didn't need to worry about his daughter because she had also been captured. The animals return to the mansion and prepare all the meat in a very macabre symphony. There is a great deal of culinary realism applied to the scene because they use real techniques to prepare the dishes, showing that despite being absurd, this was just an averse reality. Everything is done in a clean, well-lit setting with neutral or satisfied expressions from the cooks, which is the opposite of what one expects from something so horrific. These details may even suggest normality, but the context is completely abnormal. When the last scene of the chapter comes to an end, the visual shock is complete, showing the animals eating the main character, who has been transformed into dishes on the table. They comment on the fun of feeding on prey they had hunted themselves, as if this attributed some value to the respect they felt for the food.